What is introversion? Why are some people introverted and others not? And there's a spectrum, right? There are those introverts who are balanced, they're happy, they go into an environment and they just kind of watch. And then finally they're like, okay, now I want to go socialize, right? I want to go talk to people. There are also those kids and adults who essentially have social anxiety. So their introversion isn't just, well, I don't really choose to go into an environment. They can't. So they're introverted not because of choice. They're introverted because they actually don't have a choice. They're so overwhelmed by being in the environment. They're so overwhelmed by the social information that is coming at them. The sound, the sight, the stimulus, that it's too much. And they shut down. These are the kids that can't go into playgrounds to play with other kids. These are the kids who run away from groups of kids and ultimately want to go play by themselves. And I have parents that are like, oh yeah, my Sally, she just loves sitting there and reading books by herself. Or, you know what, my Tony, he just prefers to play with Legos by himself. He really doesn't like to play with other kids. Kids, human beings, forget about kids, human beings want to be social. We're wired to be social. We are social animals. And when a child doesn't want to be social, when they cannot be social, there's a reason for it. So this, he's just an introvert, is nothing but just a thing, as we say. And by that, I mean, introversion is just a label we give to things. Same thing with anxiety. We just say, well, someone has anxiety. Except it is not just introversion. It is not just anxiety. There are reasons why these things happen. And in the case of people who are introverted, there are typically two main factors. So one is how they process information from the world around them. So these are highly sensitive people who typically have an error in how they process information. So they're wired to take more information in. I'm one of them. My daughter is one of them. I take care of kids with this all the time. So highly sensitive people are wired to take in a lot of information. Except when there is an error in how they're wiring, how their connections in their brain are set up, the information suddenly gets too overwhelming. These are people or kids who get stressed out in loud and crowded environments. They get easily overwhelmed when there's too much going on. And sometimes they really, really want to be social, except finally they just hit a point and they're like, I need to leave. I need to get out of here. It's the 3-year-olds who freak out when you sing happy birthday to them because all of a sudden there's just too much information coming at them. But there's another layer on top of this, because that creates a certain degree of social anxiety. That processing disorder, the sensory processing disorder alone can cause a certain degree of social anxiety. It can cause introversion. What also happens at a very high frequency in these individuals is an element of OCD. And there are some of you ladies out there who are watching that may be like, that's kind of me. And I've had this myself because my system has a propensity to go out of balance in the same way. And what happens with this is the mind becomes a broken record. So the same thoughts keep repeating, the same thoughts keep coming up, and it's just this endless barrage of thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. And basically it's a dysfunction of overthinking. Except you're not the one doing your thinking. Your mind is just spiraling out of control. And when you add the sensory challenges along with a mind that spirals out of control, all of a sudden it's like, that's introversion. That's social anxiety. Because you've got this person who comes into the room, they're already overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden it's like, I can't talk. I can't approach these people. Oh my God, things are too loud. Oh my God, what's going on? What would this person think of me? And like in little kids, obviously their thoughts aren't that complex, but they have their own. 3-year-olds are still thinking beings, right? So their thoughts go in a different direction. And the most amazing part of this discussion, and this isn't some abstract voodoo I'm just throwing out there. This is what I see in my practice all the time. This is 40% of what I do, actually address these two things. And they're very easily treatable. So finding the right occupational therapist, the right team to help address the sensory processing disorder. The folks at NeuroFit are incredible at doing this. The other part of this is looking at the thyroid. So sometimes the thyroid is just a little tweaked out, and there isn't a true hypothyroidism. In fact, there's no clinically relevant thyroid imbalance. It's just a little bit out of tune. And that's where teas like oat straw or a tea of Avena sativa can help boost the thyroid or rebalance the thyroid functioning to help make things better. You can use a gemotherapy of lithy tree or viburnum lantana, which also helps rebalance the thyroid. And it's incredible with just these two simple plants, sometimes in a matter of weeks, the system that was out of balance, the propensity to overthink, all of a sudden calms down. And I've seen this in my practice. In my practice, we use concentrated tinctures that we get from Europe. And sometimes it's weird. Like within a matter of days, the parents are like, wow, the overthinking, like she's not tripping out anymore. What did you do? I'm like, we just rebalanced part of the system. Now, especially for some of you ladies who have chronic fatigue, you may have menstrual problems. If you've been listening to Dr. Alan Christensen's talk with me, he brings up all of these things. If you have heavy periods, if you have menstrual problems, if you have chronic fatigue, if you have difficulty losing weight, and on top of that, you have this intense overthinking, this intense anxiety, that is most likely a thyroid imbalance, potentially full frank hypothyroidism. And if you're experiencing these things, then you need to be talking to a physician and have them thoroughly investigate your thyroid to understand if you're actually in a hypothyroid state, because that is actually a serious medical condition that shouldn't just be blown off and be like, well, this guy talked about some tea, so I'm going to drink some tea because that's going to fix. These teas are powerful, but not in the face of frank hypothyroidism. Ultimately, there's so much good we can do in the world. There's so much of a difference we can make in the lives of millions of people. And the whole purpose of why I'm making these videos, the whole purpose of this entire sharing is to put this information out there so any or all families can start looking at what goes on to their child, what goes on maybe to them, and say, you know what? That's me. That's my kid. And oh my God, there's ways to help them. What really tickles me is to think, how cool would it be for a child not to have to grow up with the same anxiety I did? How cool would it be for a child to be able to leave their house and not freak out? How cool would it be to go through junior high and high school and not be terrified to be around other people? Because that was my experience. And it was not the easiest experience. And it actually took a big toll. So maybe we can make a difference in the lives of a lot of people with just sharing some information and just raising awareness. And that's all I want to do. And I hope you can help me do that. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for watching. This is Dr. K. Be well.